Zero Trust Podcast is a show at the intersection of cybersecurity, business, and AI. Hosted by experts in the field, Art and Oli, the podcast unpacks the latest threats, trends, and innovations shaping the digital security. Zero Trust Podcast brings raw insights, expert interviews, and thought-provoking discussions to help businesses and individuals navigate an increasingly hostile cyber world. Whether you're a security professional, tech, or business leader, this is your go-to source for unfiltered cybersecurity intelligence. And remember, never trust, always verify.
Okay, let's start.
Good? Ready?
Yay. I am.
Woo! Good luck.
So, hello and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast by Zero Trust Media. And we have a very special guest joining us from Belgium. Big pleasure to introduce Lars Veelaert, CEO and co-founder of XFA, innovative device security company. Hi, Lars.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm glad to be the first. I'm good. I'm glad to be the first in your new setup. It's really impressive. So I feel a bit. I should have like the same kind of professional thing now to be equal to you. But yeah, no, amazing. Thank you.
But you do. You have a beautiful view as well. You know what? I just came up with an idea that we need to have some kind of tradition for this remote sessions. And why don't we do the virtual high fives since we can't do it in the studio? Good. Welcome, Lars.
Thank you.
So actually, I wanted to start with a quote from XFA website, if that's okay. And actually, I have two which got my attention. The first one is that XFA is privacy respecting, zero trust alternative to traditional MDM for securing BYOD, freelancer, contractor, personal, and unmanaged devices. Really good to see the company that also highlights zero trust. Works great with our topic. And Lars, can you tell us in a few short sentences why XFA is special and what problem it solves?
Absolutely, I would love to. So yeah, zero trust. It was it's kind of maybe a bit overused in marketing, but XFA is really built on the original idea of zero trust, which started, I think, 8 or 9 years ago. We really want to secure every device that's being used for your company. Think every employee, but also every contractor, every partner, just everywhere that your work happens, every device, we want to make sure that it is safe. We know that it's one of the most critical things to do to make sure that these devices are up to date, that they have a password set, that they're encrypted. And what XFA does is you can just take any device that you want because we love the flexibility. You use a MacBook, a Windows, even a tablet or your phone. And the moment that you want to access an application for work, for example, your email or your calendar, the moment that you want to log in, you do not only have to prove that you are you, which you would do with your username and your password and an extra identity verification, but you would also have to prove that your device is safe. And this is where we're quite different, where we do not require this, you have to pass IT up front and give full control of your device or have your device managed or only work on a device that the company gives you. We can take any device and we only verify that device is safe without taking control. Of course, you'll be blocked if the device is not safe. And that's like our clever way to keep having people have their own control, make it a really privacy-respecting solution, but do make sure that we can cover every device that's being used for work. That's what we do.
Very cool. Very important mission. Very glad that we have new companies targeting this space because I'm not an expert in MDM specifically, and I hope we're going to uncover more details and more insights during today's talk. But I haven't seen much innovation in this space, so really nice to see new companies targeting this area. I would suggest we divide our conversation today into two parts. The first, let's talk about the industry, the market, current solutions, the problems that exist. And then go a bit deeper into technology of XFA and how it wins. And then the second part, let's do it a bit more personal, talking about your story. Lars, how did you get into device security? What did you do before? And how was the journey with XFA?
Yeah, well, if you allow, I would also propose to introduce one more topic. It's about the venture landscape in Europe, especially for cybersecurity companies, because most, like the majority, the larger majority of these cybersecurity startups, they essentially are born either in Israel or in US, and the most of the funding are there, right? And it's very interesting to hear your story, the acceleration, the raising capital story, how you build the team, etc. Because obviously, and we're tapping into the startup, let's say, community and startup related, let's say, topics quite a lot of time now, and we totally understand that Europe is very segmented and it's very different. You could have a great accelerator somewhere in Berlin and I don't know, in Lisbon, but in other large cities it could be completely different picture despite the formal metrics or let's say parameters are similar, right? So it's very interesting to hear the story of being a cybersecurity startup and rising a cybersecurity startup in Belgium.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to dive into all these topics. Sounds good.
Amazing.
Let's do it.
Good stuff. So let's start with the market and then the industry. Lars, can you tell us why device security is important at all? Like why we should care?
Well, what I love to do with customers as well, and when we talk about this, is I love to quote statistics of competitors because then I don't have to give them. Which is Microsoft published they yearly publish this big booklet of like all statistics and all things that they've noticed, and specifically one of the metrics is 98% of 89% of all the ransomware attacks come in through unmanaged devices. That's the marketing term they use, of course. So that means that the massive amounts of attacks are still ransomware. The moment that a device is compromised, they try to compromise every device, and then one moment all your devices shut down, nobody can work anymore. And I think we can talk into different companies and why different companies need to be safe, but if nobody can do work within a company, that's one of the biggest risks. In cybersecurity nomenclature, we would say, the availability risk, but ransomware is still a huge problem. And if we look at why that is, quoting the 89%, is all the devices that are not under scope of IT. And what we saw ourselves, sorry, I'm going to use our own statistic here now, but we actually see that 60% of all devices that are used for work today are completely not known by IT. And typical things that should often be done on those devices, like doing your updates, which is like one of the most important things to do. You always have like small security updates are in each update. Those basic principles are not being applied. And because you don't, it's really that simple. Because you do not have your device up to date, somebody can compromise your device either by an email, either by some package that being sent some way, and from there it just pivots through. And you don't want all your devices to go down, basically. That's why device security is still that's one of the reasons, but still really, really important.
And probably will always be.
Probably always. And I honestly hope that...
Unless the agentic AI would take over the PC as a machine from which you actually do the work into something new, right? But we will tackle the AI issue a little bit later, I guess.
It's very interesting. It's something that you always have to because it's our business, of course, device security, and something that we think about a lot is like, hey, if people don't use devices anymore, will that still be a business for ours then still to do? Because there's a lot of things changing, but definitely making sure every device is important.
So you already have some contingency plan when people stop going to offices and doing work and using devices, and it'll be only AGI?
Absolutely. I wouldn't call it a contingency plan. I just would call it actually like a continuation of the vision. What we really see, and if I say the word, please don't be scared, but shadow IT has been like a term for quite a while. And it's this idea of why do whatever IT wants to do, whatever security wants to do, why doesn't it get applied everywhere, on all devices, on all servers, for all people? And what we see is we make differences based on how people get paid. if they're contractors, suddenly they use their own devices and we don't care anymore. But they do the same job.
And have the same access.
Yeah, you have the exact same access. You have the exact same risk, and it's just because the difficulties, because the technology was not adapted to people, you get less coverage. And you have the same with, so you have device security, of course, but you have the same with things like access management or elevated access management. The moment you give people less permissions, but I promise you, if I call somebody of my team and say like, I want access to this, I will get access to this. I'm just breaking protocol completely.
Hey, you're a CEO, of course.
Of course, but it's not true. And you see a lot of, you see as technology and agentic AI, it all gets bigger. The security problems just get bigger as well. And we need more flexible, modern systems everywhere. And I think XFA can be a really good place. We have our sentence on the top of our website is verify every device, secure any user. The any user is really like, however is your relationship with the company, we should be able to secure you. So we have a lot of ideas there. There can keep going on. Yeah.
You said an interesting number, if you allow it. 90-something%, according to your statistic, it's the devices which are not managed by the company, and they are becoming an entry point for ransomware and other attacks, right? Could you specify what particular market size, or what is better to say your perfect customer is in terms of headcount, in terms of IT, cybersecurity maturity, maybe revenue? Because I would specify the question, MDM, the tools which are meant to manage devices, right? They are in the neighborhood for a while, and they were designed definitely before, all this turbulence which has happened to us over the course of last, 6 years. Like it was before COVID, it was during the cloud adoption, actually, I would say, the rise of MDM solutions. So essentially, they definitely were not designed for the current landscape of threats and the ways people work. And actually, this trend of having freelancers and part-timers, I think it deeply relates to the work from home policies, deeply relates to the, general society willingness to work not only from office. It also is driven by the global threats. People, relocate, they move from one country to another, but they want to keep their job. They want to keep working with the same team. So it's essentially quite naturally transferred into what we have now. And when you have like 50% of your staff not actually, your full-time employee, you question yourself, do you really need to issue a laptop to this person? And most probably you don't, especially if you're a small company, right? Because it's costly, and everyone has its own preference. If it's a middle to senior level position, they probably have their loved laptop. Maybe it's a macOS, maybe it's a Windows, maybe they're a fan of Ubuntu or whatever. And you don't want to force them to work on another operating system because it could slow them down, right? So the question is how the modern MDM solutions compete to all these challenges, and isn't it actually the drive for you to start building XFA?
Well, let's separate. Let's focus on
lots of questions in one. Yeah, sorry for that.
Let's focus on existing MDM solutions, like how they work and what do they solve.
So first, of course, correct. It's in Dutch. It's we switch the numbers, so it's 89% indeed. Well, it's still up there, of course. 89% are of the ransomware attacks get into unmanaged devices. And to answer your question, so first of all, we don't like to call ourselves an MDM because we are not. We do not use the word management or monitor anywhere on our website, unless it's, of course, to distance ourselves from it, because that is indeed where the crucial problem lies, which you highlight. And like if we look at the markets, and to go in Ole's question as well, is you have typically Intune. Intune dominates the market. You have a lot of other examples as well, which is YAMF. And what you see there is they're really good and really tailored to secure, for example, Windows with Intune or YAMF to macOS. And they take full control, and immediately the design, the architecture of that whole idea is, this full device is full ownership of that company. And that's where it breaks. And I definitely agree with that. Problems got way worse after COVID, but actually the idea for XFA and actually the ideas that is based on Zero Trust and Project Aurora and Google Beyond Corp were started before Corona even, we even knew, right? And it all comes from, I think you say that very nice, it comes from this idea, it used to be that a computer was the size of a room. And then we figured out, it needs to be on the whole day. So we need to be able to maybe call an ITer and remotely. So the internet was born, and like we would remotely make changes and help people, or people would be able to quickly get something from work. And then devices or computers became something that was locked to a disk, and then IT was responsible. I always like to make the example of, it's more like a rack of hammers, a rack of tools that you could use. And indeed, we just applied that same logic because devices and technology was so expensive on like these small devices, these phones, these tablets that you could just take home. And now we're in a moment, we're in a place that we see in statistics, on average, people use 2.3 devices. So that problem just scales out of bounds. And the idea that one device is being used for one purpose, one company, quickly breaks. And we just do not believe that MDM is the way to go anymore. Not only from people don't like it, but just from the fact that then there will be one person or one computer somewhere centralized that can make changes on all computers. And that's just something that we wouldn't design for in like cybersecurity anyway. And I think that narrative, we always say we're a privacy respecting alternative to MDM because it puts people in the mind of, the values of an MDM, but we are by no means an MDM or don't want to be. And we really believe that the idea of device management is completely broken and frankly done.
Do you believe that this statement is true for all type of companies? Because I still think that, those, firstly, large companies, right, who do not allow the employees to use what we call bring your own device or BYOD. And there are still such companies, but I would say they sometimes lie to themselves because they still allow mobile phones. And it's very hard to forbid allowing mobile phones because anyway, you want your employees to check emails all around the day, to be available on Slack or Teams.
I mean, you can have corporate phones, right? But they will probably still carry their personal phone with them to work.
In practice, as a virtual CISO, I saw 2 times over the course of last 15 years when companies really issue a mobile phone to everybody, or at least to most VIPs and important people who have extended access. In reality, it's 10% of phones comparing to the total headcount to the best case. So, but there are companies who try to do that, and they still need lots of tools to be implemented there. It's all bulky, it doesn't work properly, and it ends up with people start using their own devices, fighting with IT, asking them, no, make an exclusion, give me access to this SharePoint site, etc., etc. So yeah, this is a big pain in the ass for cybersecurity and IT guys. And still, large companies, they implement MDMs, and sometimes it's quite effective, which I truly believe it's absolutely false for smaller companies. I have, for instance, a customer, 50 people. We work with them I think this is the 3rd year we work with them. We started from scratch. They didn't have anything. They didn't understand their risks. They didn't have any governance. They didn't have, any controls implemented or understanding what the controls are, essentially. And we are discussing the IDM, identity management, and MDM for 2 years, and they still didn't implement it because they want to nurture this culture of their team that it's quite flexible. They could, experiment a lot, especially now with all these AI tools. And they wish to implement MDM unless it was so costly and unless it was so heavy to maintain and so heavy in terms of, influencing the company culture. So what I'm saying is that larger companies, they still okay with that, but smaller companies, it's a big issue for them to start. Even by the way, this particular example, they did buy laptops for all of them, all of the members, all of them employees. So it's there, they don't have bring your own device, and still this issue is in place. But Lars, tell me, so what is the fundamentally different approach of XFA compared to MDM? You still know what is installed on the machines. You still could,
maybe Lars can answer better.
For sure. I just want to put the question. You see my style. I like long questions.
Go ahead.
So finally, the question is: what is different of XFA compared to MDM? Knowing that you still, have access to a lot of telemetry on the device. How you do that?
So I think I can give a really technical answer, which just puts us completely different.
Yep.
Well, if you have to install XFA, that's another thing. But if you install XFA, it installs without admin rights. So that means it's only read. That's one big difference. So an MDM can make changes. It's made to execute commands, etc. And then what we do with XFA is we also we run in this runtime, don't have access to change things. We can still see things. So is your OS up to date? Is your browser up to date? Those kind of things. And then fundamentally, and this is really just a choice of ours, I mean our ethic, is we will not upload a full list of the applications that you have installed. We will check each of them if they're up to date, which are work relevant or which can impact you. And then we'll send over that state if it's problematic, or we would, in some cases, we would not expose which application it is, but when you log in, we would, if the requirement is all business apps have to be up to date, then we would be able to block that user. And that full approach, instead of, we will verify only, so it's a read-only system, that really puts people at ease. And the rest is just indeed ethics. Look, the idea is not to give full view on that user and what that user is doing. And that's fundamentally different. And that's paired with the idea of because it's now applicable to everybody, let's make it a requirement on every login. And that's where you see the 100% coverage and 100% the users. And cool. That's the fundamental difference.
Will it also detect some malware applications on the desktop?
It doesn't by itself detect malware applications. How we see it and how we see that security has changed is your laptop, or your modern laptop and your modern phone have everything out there that they need. They have an antivirus, they have macOS even has a built-in antivirus. I didn't know that before, but it has. And just making sure that those things are up to date, running with the latest whatever, is already such a massive step forward.
Yep.
We have applications and more to the enterprise case. I would love to also jump into what's the ideal company, because it's also a really interesting differentiator. But we have companies that say, hey, we want to have this extra thing installed, or you just have, this is a list of antiviruses we want to have installed on top of it. I'm like, okay, totally fine. But that still gives people options, and you allow them to install and do these things at their own pace. Yes, there will be some deadline, but they're not waiting in line at IT or just making tickets. And just that experience, and I think we're also talking about this, it's just vastly different from how managed devices are being done. And that's why smaller companies are just by default, look, we're just going to buy you the stuff because we want you to work on fancy devices, but make sure that they're safe by themselves. And then you get to this awkward scale where you're like, are people really following our guidelines, willingly or unwillingly? And what we do see, even with big enterprises, you quoted a 5 to 10% number. We see that going way higher of devices that are not known, 40, 60%, just because at scale, these processes start to break. And that's where you need something flexible. That's how we look at it.
And this brings me to a second quote from your website, which is that XFA lets people work on any device they want with a smooth experience that boosts productivity, happiness, and offers security. So you also care about people's happiness and try to make it higher?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that if I tomorrow, I have this habit where I would switch every time from operating system. I don't know if I would still do it now, but I like this idea. If you want to work on a Linux device tomorrow, go for it. And if that makes you happy, it's always a bit hurt and a bit happy at the same time. But I mean, if that makes you happy, then that's great. And I really see, especially in startup world, we have a lot of startups that come to us, and one of the biggest questions is Linux. One of the biggest differentiators is Linux, and you see them just being really happy, like, whoa, I can use Arch Linux without an IDE, and yeah, that's totally fine. And that, I think that's where you also quote happiness, and for many reasons as well. It's like, that's the whole idea. It's not only the company that, yeah, it's your freedom, that's one thing, but then next to like more non-technical people, also the fact that they are sure that they're safe and then they won't get in trouble with the company is also something that we see that people are really happy about. Yeah.
And what about Android and iOS? Are you tapping, what is your call to this technology, to these operating systems?
So we also just have an app there that you can install. It doesn't install a management profile, doesn't take control of a device. You can use
no
it for
VPN?
multiple. No VPN at all. Just in the moment that you go to log in somewhere, you basically have this payment app experience that you would otherwise have. If it's not installed, it will be asked to install the app. If it is installed, it will quickly jump over 2 seconds. Everything is verified. Your operating system up to date. You have biometrics set, those kind of things. Jumps back. We have the information to verify your device, and you're done. And that's really nice.
Cool.
To summarize, basically the difference between traditional MDM and XFA is that there is no admin access to the device. And the second one, was it the second one?
And the second one is ours. Yeah, because we can really apply to every device, not only just mobile, Android, iOS, Linux, Windows, macOS. You get 100% coverage, and then our system can really, as part of authentication, enforce that the device has to be safe. It's not only the check of your device is managed, which technology exists like Intune conditional access. Oh, we only allow managed devices. Our technology can verify the security status, can warn you at that moment, can allow you to go through for a limited time. So no, we do not take control of the device. And the other one is a really flexible, gradual experience every time you log in to enforce that things are safe.
So essentially you're a flashlight on an endpoint. Whenever endpoint tries to connect to the corporate premises, let's name it this way, you just observe what they have. If you spot something, you say, whoa, stop. First, mitigate this, this, and this, right? And from this point, what is the user experience? They just have a pop-up message like, guys, you need to update your antivirus, and that's it? Or there are some, there are different type of users. There are, users with the extra level of IT knowledge, and it's not a big deal for them to update anything or to, turn on some specific local firewall rule. But there are some people who don't care about IT and they just want to get, job done. So what is the experience? If we would start with the company tomorrow, then the first experience is actually something that end users wouldn't see, which is we read out in like a couple clicks. An admin can give us some access to the sign-in logs. So the bit of metadata that every time somebody logs in or interacts with let's say Google or Microsoft or Teams or whatever. And out of those bits, it's 3,000 logs every day from every device. We can actually extrahere a lot about which device is that user using. So for example, this person is using iPhone, this person is using macOS, etc. And with that information, we'll send them a friendly email. Hey, these are the new requirements for the company. Let's get started, etc. That's a big difference already. It's very easy, but you get immediate insight as an admin, and then you can immediately just help them get onboarded. And we haven't come to the blocking yet. And what we see is that 80% of the risk is just informed by very good awareness, which is fully automatic at that point. And then indeed, you would turn on this verification on authentication. So the moment you go to your Gmail, the moment you go to
your teams. And that's where you can set policies. And the beginning of the policy always starts with, when do you want to warn people? Basically, when are you going to ask them for a first extra click? So it's like, hey, well, if they don't have XFA installed at that point, they will be prompted to install it. But once they have it installed and we verify, yeah, your device is not really up to date, but look, the update was yesterday, it's fine. Then they just get, do you know this? Yes? Okay, I'll do it later. Sure. Then they will get an email to just, hey, do it at your own time, do it during coffee break. And this is great. And then there is actually like this moment that they will be blocked. Okay, look, these 5 things are in warning, but this is really in block. Like, we don't allow you to do this. Sorry, yeah. And then they just have to do it. They can click. They get a guide how to do it themselves. And it's this really interesting play on like psychology of like, no, we're not taking control, but yes, we can enforce things without taking control. And people respond really well to it. So we're quite happy with the results.
Yeah, it's crazy how awareness is still a large topic in 2026. For us, for security guys, it's hard to believe, but every year it's absolutely the same story. People mostly don't care, they forget. And recently we had an incident involving large amount of money transferred by just phishing influence without any payloads, attachment to the emails. So it was a pure fraud, so to say. And it's because the CFO of the company was, mailing for 2 months with a adversary, and he proved that he is authentic while obviously he was using Gmail and Outlook domains. And despite this, CFO has passed so many awareness trainings, it's crazy. And you know what? The AI issue, I think the key threats in AI is absolutely the same as with people, because prompt injection is essentially what it is. It's fooling the mechanism the same way you actually fool people. So it's interesting times.
Wait a minute with AI. We'll get to that. So to summarize on traditional MDM tools, would you say there is a case where the company would need traditional MDM and XFA at the same time?
I think there is, and it comes to, like, we skipped it over the question, being a bit more passionate, is I definitely do. I definitely think, like, for example, for a bank, and I think like really, really high risk like organizations that are like, hey, we're totally fine to not taking any risk, but also we're okay with dropping our productivity to not get any risk. I think those locations, it's okay that you still manage devices, because then you put clear ownership somewhere, and that's totally fine. Budgets are also through the roof for these organizations, and I do think, for example, doing XFA on 90% of the devices, and then the people who have to go in the data centers, that they have to go work on managed devices, also totally fine. I really see, like, with XFA, we also launched something which we call agentless, where we do not even need to install anything. We just, from all the heuristics and the device information that we gather, we can really say, oh, you're allowed access, without even verifying with the app of XFA. It's like, for 20-30% of the low risk things, that's totally fine. No friction at that point. A bit more friction, right? Yeah, through the browser, like browse information from Chrome, or you can just access, and that's nice because we get some information from the browser, so we can say, okay, there's no risk here, let's go there. So we save a lot of friction and frustration there, and then you can go a bit more tighter on like the things that really involve risk. And then if there's like really, really high risk things, okay, let's work on a managed device. But now we have managed devices and we have unmanaged devices. Oh, unmanaged devices are a problem. We don't want to, and then they say, oh, we don't allow BYOD, but then you do a scan and 40% of the devices are brought by users, which is normal. People want to do their job. I like the fact that, I like the story of today, where you have this one device which is so locked down, you cannot copy paste. And then if you ask any worker after they've worked at such a place, I have my own device where I send all my email there and I do my work there. And that's how like security breaches happen. You force people too much, you break their productivity, you break their happiness. And then, as with all things, it sounds like, hey, we're going to be less risky, but we're going to accept more risk. But I think it's just you need to find a balance that you can get the right coverage at every place.
That's very to the point. Very cool. And in terms of costs and effort, would the XFA approach be cheaper and quicker for admins?
We at least we think so, absolutely. And like we have our demos online, it's like a couple clicks to discover all your devices. It's a click then after to inform everybody, and then it's copying 3 fields to make sure that if people want to log in, that they're verified. I ask our team to regularly set up devices in management because we want to compare things and make sure they don't clash. It's a different experience. And if you would just do it on license costs, look, they're very competitive. We're going to be the same. But if you look at the amount of the consultants that you need on top of a management solution and the time and the effort, I think was quite well explained, that's where all your cost is. And then, the productivity gain you see after and the happiness. I don't know how that quantifies in money, but that sure accounts for something.
Cool. Have you heard about Stryker attack, the recent one associated with Iran Ministry of, I don't remember what is the right name, but intelligence and something else, special services. The
Not
Stryker.
No.
This is I think it's a US-based medical company, and they compromised the single administrative account of Microsoft Intune and wiped 80,000 devices. Before that, they exfiltrated 50 terabytes of data. No DLP has stopped them. They were all controlled by MDM. I think you should use it in your pre-sales materials. Having MDM
still use Intune?
Still use MDM. But listen, let's try to figure out. So there is a market of MDM, which you say you're not there. There is a market of
but
EDR.
But I'm competing with them. I guess this is alternative solution, so it's probably the same market, just different solution.
How we say it is like, we will cover all your unmanaged devices. There are many companies that do not manage devices at all, so that means 100%, and there's companies that manage devices, so we will do the other 60%. That's how we phrase it. We're kind of competing them. It's more efficient. It's easier, but it's definitely there are still companies that are like, we want to manage every device, and then I put a reminder to contact them next year, because we see the mindset changing quite rapidly away from managing devices.
This is actually very resonates with me and with what we do at StackBob, because in StackBob we help you to manage unmanaged apps and identity in those disconnected apps, which is, as you say, like some companies, they don't do it at all, then it's 100%, and some companies they do, but they can only control like central apps which are connected through APIs and stuff. So great mission. And I think we also should think about the partnership in the future. We're having XFA enabling StackBob authentication as well, but we can talk about that separately.
Of course. I think, and that note as well, I think people are really waking up on this idea of, it used to be called shadow IT, and there's many, it sounds all really cool, but this idea of like, look, you need to embrace non-conformity. You need to embrace variety. You need to embrace people who will just sign up for random tools. And it's better to work with them and then correct them in a friendly way, in a productive way. Because indeed, the dream of everybody will use my system, well, I want to say it's over, but did it ever exist? Now we just know it doesn't work because, we saw it with all the breaches. So definitely agree there. I have a lot of respect for everybody in support and everybody doing this on a day-to-day basis. It's not easy. They get, to be frank, and apologies for the language, but they get cheated on a lot. I just hope that indeed, like, and same with StackBob, like they see a pitch somewhere, they see it's a big shift, and I see if they see that, it's like, whoa, okay, this can make me 10 times more efficient and really can solve my concerns. I dream for that world.
That's a great dream. And very good. So we covered the traditional MDM. How about some modern solutions? Are there any competitors that you see in the market trying to do something similar or different?
Yeah, there was there was Kolide, which 2 years actually.
The one password company, yeah?
Yeah, 1Password company. So they were acquired by 1Password, I think about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. It's actually an interesting story because we had the idea of XFA about around 5 years ago. Like I was a CISO before. Like I started as a Pentester. I worked for now my co-founder. He was the CISO of a big media company, and we were reading up on Beyond Corp. He was really like putting that strategy in the organization, and we really saw, hey, XFA, like that's where the idea came from. What if we can verify device security as part of authentication? And then I think we were building it at that point, and we had a POC ready, and we were going for first investment round. And I remember it was March 2023, I think. And Kolide came out with, they were kind of an MDM, but an MDM that wouldn't enforce things automatically, but inform people through Slack. Honestly, great idea. Also the founder, really good, wrote I would say a small book or online, like honest security, like really good vision. And then they came out with a good marketing website, I think. Product was not working yet, but they came out with, we can verify devices as part of authentication only for Okta. So they were really focused on Okta. And we saw them, we're like, whoa, okay. And that was the first, and it's the one that's the closest, I believe, that came to what we do. And yeah, they were acquired, I think, half a year later by 1Password. So that's impressive to know. Of course, like, yeah, we apply to everything. So we're not only Okta, and we don't have that MDM requirement, or we don't require admin control of systems. But yeah, that's, I think, one of the closest one. I'm really curious how that now fits into 1Password. It's one that we of course monitor. And then you see a lot of like other technologies coming up, I think, especially from the SSO space. And I think, Oli, you also would know many of these, where you see dual security, you see, it's now, I think, yeah, Cisco now, dual security, creating like an authenticator app that can also verify your device posture. You see the same from Okta. You see many companies out, because that's really the real true new frontier, or the new perimeter, where the moment people want to log in, you verify their devices. Yeah. So those are, I think, a couple ones. We have a sheet somewhere with all our competitors, of course, but like it's that's like I honestly think that's it was a good confirmation to see that there were other people in the market thinking the same thing. I think that's how you should look at competition. So.
And with this, like, do you have special niche, vertical industry that you are targeting at the first place?
Oh, not really. We really see a great fit with the companies that are like 50 to 150 employees, or like team members, because not only employees, also contractors, of course. A specific vertical, we see companies that need productivity, innovation, but also some clear needs to security or compliance. So, for example, fintech or medtech, or young startups that are involved in cybersecurity, maybe like Stackbob, for example, like they're a really good fit, because the need is clear that like we want to be secure, we also want to be a productive company. We might have technical people also work on Linux or do something really deep technical. So they need the security and the freedom, and that's a really good fit for us. But apart from, I think it's the same for our competitors. We have, of course, competitors like Okta that I mentioned. We integrate with them, so that works very well. They also have their own products. We see often that more really big enterprises, of course, they don't want to have multiple providers, so they would go for Okta only and use the Okta provided thing, but we see issues there as well. So no specific vertical, but I think it's more about the providers and which provider you use, where you end up.
And in terms of geography, is it Europe, US, global focus?
Well, so we have customers from the US to like far beyond Europe. So it's nice, of course. Like we're Europe based, we're made in Europe, so we go to events in Europe. So I think 80% of our customers are in Europe. So yeah, that's honestly that's a focus right now. Also, just because of the values of privacy, I said before, the whole idea of contractors, the ability to work for multiple companies, it's something that's very active in Europe. So we want to just leverage that here as well. But yeah, US companies are of course very welcome, but we're not based there at the moment. So something for later to when we cross the pond.
I believe it's a great time for you to be in Europe because of, you mentioned DORA, NIS2, and obviously Europe, by the way, not always and most probably in most cases it's lagging behind, but in compliance and regulations, Europe doing a great job compared to US and other parts of the world. And privacy is something which is being pressured by European Union a lot. And you also mentioned today, and it's explicitly stated on your website, that you respect privacy, and this is actually one of the fundamental reasons why you don't control the endpoint fully, because there should be some sort of flexibility, and people should own their device, so to say. So the question is, how do you draw a line between, the securing a device and surveilling a person? So where, it's a little bit question related to ethics, right? But technologically wise, where you said yourself that, okay, this is the line, we're not going to cross it.
That's a great question, because honestly, it's something that I think on a weekly basis we're debating. Customer has a question, hey, is this something you can add? Why is the customer asking it? What's the real risk? Is this a perceived risk? Is this a real risk? Have we seen real hacks based on this? I think it's not a direct answer to what you're saying, but one of the big things is we believe 100% coverage is goal number one. So everybody should be covered by, we want to have security for everybody, right? So the moment that we start doing too much, that means it's too much surveillance. I think what we think is it also really depends what kind of risks there is. So what we also do with XFA, we ask different things based on what risk you are exposed to. And that really works well. So we never want to cross I think those two kind of go hand in hand. Seeing that you use Brave browser, maybe for some people is a bit too invasive. I don't. I think if you work for a company in that Brave browser, I think it's fine. So that's one of those things, and we really try to also go in conversation with we love if people contact us about this, because then we can go in conversation with the people that are really have a core on this. But I don't think we have a very clear answer on this. I think surveillance is when it's about, hey, is this person working? Are they on their device? That's a clear no. No, we're not gonna do this. We get the question a lot. Do they have files on their system or this? You would also, by doing this, you would also scan photos and other documents. So yeah, it's not something we'll do. It's honestly a conversation. It's not really a straight answer, but it's often the goal is 100% coverage. We want to make it as dynamic as possible, that it never feels like surveillance, and it's a good conversation to have.
Have you ever thought about having like two branches, the one functionality available for the corporate devices, another one for bring your own devices or for freelancers, so to say? So essentially you have the single console, you have single approach, but you do a little bit more with corporate owned devices.
That's a great question. Yes, we get that question a lot. We think about it a lot. It's all about trust, right? And what we thought about
trust no one, right? Zero trust.
That's a good point. And it's really like, well, if we're building this brand, like you see XFA on top, and it's read only, like it's not going to make changes. It would be very difficult to build a strong brand around we're not doing this, and then they end up meeting somebody that had the other version of XFA installed, which we don't have, to be very clear for the recording, and say, yeah, it wiped my device. And then people would be, wait, whoa, and then we'd have to
makes sense.
The
reputation
have the
thing,
kind of
right?
trust again. The reputation thing. So and it's really it's not worth it when we go into discussions on what people want to do with MDM. It's often about, yes, I want to remotely wipe a device. I want to, and then we ask why. And the first one is when it gets stolen. I'm like, totally understand. If it has a password, if it times out, and if it was disk encrypted, they can't do anything with it. Okay, and like if they steal it for that purpose, it would go in a black bag anyway. It would be opened in a dark room, which is a room sealed from any radio material or radio waves or Wi-Fi. So there's no chance that you would be able to wipe it remotely. Okay, yeah, but what if somebody leaves? What if somebody is an employee and they're a bad actor, a bad leaver? Well, you kind of have all the details you need for legal action, right? And you're kind of throwing them from like your social media accounts and like any access. So it always gets into this: is it more like we're IT and we've been, again, apologies, but shitted on for years? So like it's your responsibility, and it's slowly this ownership that's going over to people themselves, where we say, I need all the control because I'm responsible. Is that feeling like we need to see all the buttons, we need to have all the control? Or is it just, do you really need it?
Great answer. I think we actually gradually came to the second part of the conversation about starting a startup, a cybersecurity startup in Europe. And I think actually Art had a question, which is, Art, do you want to start with it?
I don't know if Lars still hears me. In fact, I have lots of technical questions, but I also see the timeline that we're already running out the time to keep ourselves in the digestible duration. I would ask maybe the last one, and technical one. And if you could just very high level to complete the full picture. So I think the listeners understand that we do have a sort of MDM, new generation of MDM, which we don't fully call MDM because we don't have managed piece in that. We have monitoring piece and enforcing piece. But how technically it works? Do you need to deploy some kind of server or a tool in the environment of your customer, which you essentially connect to all the other apps and which acts as a gateway, or you do it through your cloud, or there are options? So if you could elaborate a little bit more on that, so I think the audience would understand the big picture, and then let's move to the second part, if you allow.
Absolutely. No, so it's really a SaaS solution, so it's a cloud solution, and everything goes through there, works through there. So in your Microsoft or your Google tenant, you just, with 3 values, you point to us, and at that point we take over what we need to do. So no deployment in your network, no everything. And actually for like users install XFA themselves. So that's the rest of the deployment. And that's it. There's no extra thing that needs to be done. It works everywhere outside of the network. Yeah, nothing needed.
Very cool. And do you have any term how you're calling this new category that you're creating?
Yes, we actually coined the term ZTAA, which is a play on ZTNA, so Zero Trust Network Access. We say it's actually Zero Trust Application Access, because it was never about the network. We don't want to trust the network anymore. People work outside the network. It's about you're going to access an application, whatever an application means, but you're going to application an application, you're going to do something for work, you're going to apply your work, and we just want you to, we don't want to trust anybody and their device. You just need to first gain our trust, we'll verify everything, and then you can use the application. And we think that's a much healthier model than trying to invent a new kind of VPN that we see actually happening with our tools, where they would say, they would try to expand the network in every home, and it just doesn't work. It's not scalable.
Cool. I like the technology. I think this is what I'm going to talk to my customers about next time on our weeklies.
Just send them the link to the video. We need more views.
Absolutely. This is what I do all the time. Lars, listen, you've been a security advisor, you've been a CISO, and at a certain point you decide, okay, we need to do the tool because there was nothing similar existed at that time. Let's take off our security hats and put on the business hats, right? So you decided, okay, I do the technology, I have a technical co-founder, and you decided you lived in Belgium, you decided to do it in your homeland, right? So what you could say, what features of the startup ecosystems in Belgium and in the region, you could say that it really helped you to kick off the project, and how hard it was to raise your first round.
Very long question.
It's a good, it's a good question. It's interesting. So the thing is, like, how hard was it? It's the first time we ever did it.
So it was hard.
Yeah. I do say, like, raising money is the one of the most difficult things I ever did, or the most difficult thing. It's just because you're using skill sets that you didn't have before, and it's really interesting. It feels quite rewarding. I'm very happy about it. But me and my co-founder are also the kind of type of person that are really honest about, like, to other entrepreneurs as well. It's like, that's how it goes, because we believe through that sharing of things that are difficult, we believe we all learn from each other. But yeah, first of all, like, both me and my co-founder are very technical. We decided this, hey, I'll focus on commercial. He's always been, so he was the CISO of this big media company. He's been really onto, like, the Google Beyond Corp from the start, and he really, like, keeps on going on that vision and gives us guidance there. And then, yeah, okay, you have to raise your first round. Yeah, of course, we have a network in Belgium, so we leverage that, of course. You then end up convincing somebody, and then they end up convincing somebody to just give you a pitching slot or a moment of your time. And regarding how difficult it was, I think it's just all finding that one first person that really trusts you and really in their network wants to, like, say, hey, they're raising a round and I trust what they do. But yeah, first time you raise money, we run our businesses before, and we can do some basic maths. So I mean, finances, okay, fine, but it's all at the same time. You have to put up a legal framework. You have to go in conversation with lawyers. You certainly have to, with your founder, with somebody that you've worked endlessly in weekends on, you have to go in conversations about what if we don't like each other anymore.
It's a tough conversation.
It's a tough conversation. It's a very good conversation. I actually like the conversation. It's important. If you can't have that conversation, I don't think you should start a company, but or at least not together. But I think it's really difficult. I say to everybody, like, please do it. I do think there is this, in Europe, we're quite afraid to fail. And you see it in everything. And I think the whole thing with a startup is 9 out of 10 or even far worse odds, you're going to fail. But it's going to be, failure is not total, it's done. It's like you're going to start something new, or you're going to have this great opportunity after. And I think that's the main challenge in Europe, both within yourself, within what they then call high risk, so venture capital, like high risk investing, and even banks, we're much more averse to risk. And that's one of the biggest, I think, difficulties in Europe to raise capital. If you're in the US, if you say, like, hey, I want to work weekends, nights, and whenever, then they'll just throw money at you. Well, that's at least what people tell me. I've never raised capital in the US, but that's how it goes. In Europe, it's much more difficult.
Have you considered? Sorry.
Just one small joke. I just recently had a conversation with one VC investor, and we were discussing what if Tesla, SpaceX were pitching 10 years ago to a European investor. And we were, making up these jokes like there is no PMF, there is not a clear path to revenue, there is, lots of objections, which we were joking about European funds probably would have, because the risk tolerance is lower, and I believe this is the main challenge to for the VC market to grow. But at the same time, we experience great accelerators, incubators, and the angel investors and syndicates, angel syndicates, which is, I see each year more and more of these are appearing. Small investors like with $20,000 of check to enter the syndicate, they eventually able to fund like hundreds of millions of dollars of deals, right? So it's growing, but the risk tolerance, I think this is something which needs to be decreased a little bit.
And Lars, have you ever considered moving to US and building companies there, or it was always a dream to build a company in the EU, or maybe there was no dream and just like someday you woke up and say, I'm doing a startup?
It's a good question. I've always liked multiple places, or I like travel. I think I'm not sure if I'm really bound to in the same aspect that I like flexibility, that I like. I'm not sure if I'm specifically bound to one place. It's definitely something that we considered. Actually, my co-founder here studied in the US. Actually did a PhD in the US. So after actually he was a CISO, he went to do a PhD, and like there are some aspects that are really interesting there. It has crossed our minds, but yeah, there's other things that you also have to think about. I wouldn't rule it out at some point that I would love to also go to the US and do the US branch of XFA there, of course. But I'm not sure. I also somewhere think like location shouldn't matter. Like working on whatever device or working from anywhere shouldn't matter. Location shouldn't matter. And that's how I try to approach it. But yeah, I think I hope we saw some great initiatives in Europe to make us more resilient or an innovative place to be or start companies. I hope that continues. And then it would be a great place to be. Because the US also has downsides, of course. So yeah, I don't know. It has crossed our minds, something we think about, but yeah.
And how do you see the working culture or startup culture in Europe or maybe in Belgium compared to the US? Like, this 996 culture where you work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, maybe leaving the office?
I think that this depends a lot only on I mean, the question is talent acquisition, I think. The customers, where are your customers, how it's easy to sell, how it's easy to raise, and is it hard to find people at your early stage? And I think the only thing we didn't discuss are people, genuinely. How it's, I mean, and it relates to your question a lot, like how people work in startups, right?
Is it difficult to find startup-minded people in Europe, in your experience, and like, do they work a lot? So do they have great work-life balance?
Do they share the excitement with you, your excitement, or it's hard to convince them?
They should share our excitement. So it's an interesting question. So I personally do believe in working hard. I do not believe in the 996, like that should be done at an office or forced.
Because you have XFA installed on all laptops, you could work anywhere, right?
You could work anywhere. Yeah, no, totally true. Like the thing is, we really have the culture of like, look, one of those days you're like, hey, I want to work a bit later, or like, yeah, something happens, like flexibility in both ways. Could you please, let's get this resolved before you go home. And another day you're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it at 3. And it's like, yeah, or at 2, or at 10 in the morning, like I feel sick. I had this like, okay, I don't feel well. Okay, then go home. Because we really believe in a long term that would make that people are more productive in general, because they can work more hours or work more concentrated. And it's been proven that like in the times that you're doing other things, in these ADD-ridden times, like you are like doing other things and you're still thinking about work. We all had it. I can be very sure that you were doing something else, driving from work or going to sleep, and that you said, oh yeah, that's how I can fix that bug or solve that problem. And so I don't really believe in the 996. I do believe, or I think working hard is something that should be celebrated or should be admired, but it's not, definitely helps. But yeah, and you find these people, like everybody should be excited. And we do see, however, that, and this is something that we questioned ourselves recently, is from the people that we hire, we see a lot of people that have traveled or like that are more internationally inclined, or they've already moved to Belgium, for example. We have an office culture, so we ask people to come to the office, but they might have moved 15 years ago to Belgium, or they, we see a lot of people who have really a mentality of like, let's go for it, let's take chances, let's take leaps, really more risk, or high risk appetite of people joining us, and I think that's great. I don't think that's bad. So, but it's something that we do notice just in general in Europe. People are much more risk averse, and that's often that. Yeah, I think that's something that's very native to Europe, and we hope that changes a bit to be more risk appetite and try things, try to fail, be okay with failing. So.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the sick leave scenario, when the person doesn't feel well in the morning, is there any possibility in the future that XFA will have a feature to get the wrist temperature from your wristband and say, hey, you cannot log into your Google account because you have high temperature?
You could do dumb things, so don't do that.
Yeah, I think that causes many GDPR, HIPAA, and medical lines. But yeah, actually, the funny thing is I worked for a medical medtech startup, Byteflies, before in Antwerp, and we actually did exactly that. Not from a wristband, but like from a small chip that you can place on your chest. But yeah, knowing from that, it's and many other reasons. Let's not conflate that with a little bit logging in for work that will give problems. But yeah,
sure. Just kidding.
So Lars, AI. I'm sure that all tech guys should be fans of AI now, because it finally drives the results which we all expect like 3 or 4 years ago when the first GPTs were like booming, and now you really see the full agentic systems which just cut the efforts like 90% to some quite complex cases, starting from coding, marketing, sales outreach, lead generation, writing a cybersecurity policy, evaluating the risks, or finding the needle in all this context of cybersecurity, which is sometimes crazy, right? You have business context, you have risk context, you have threat intelligence, you have the real things on the ground. You understand that you're not doing well in cybersecurity in some particular areas, and when you grasp it all together and ask AI to give you insights, it now does very great job if you build the right skills, if you explain to the agent what you expect from it, and when you combine the agents into agentic platforms, it really nuts. So the question is, my belief is that we would see more and more work in the browser type of things. Like with time you would need just terminals to access the data and access computational power. You would need less and less of device, but it's questionable. Obviously, for heavy users, you still want to have local models and all this stuff run locally. But the average or the majority of users, I believe, they are enough of browser. So how XFA is prepared to this agentic story? Are you already investing into securing what agents could access from the devices, or what people could ingest into agents?
You mean within the company, or you mean with our technology?
With your technology and you personally as an expert, it's interesting to hear your opinion.
It's so it's interesting. Like we meet people that say, AI, it's not for me. Oh, I use ChatGPT sometimes, and then you have people who fully go there, and it changes every week. What we see is there is this dangerous extension of human behavior, which you see, for example, OpenClaw, so like the really autonomous AI agents that we see like, okay, that's really, really risky. And we do with XFA is like, it's when we can really say, okay, this is really dangerous behavior, please don't do that on the work machine. These are things that we detect. For example, we detect if you have an autonomous AI agent installed on your machine itself, so basically it's acting as if it was you. That's something that we decided to come up to our, where is it surveillance, where is it security? Something that we decided, okay, look, have that maybe on a different device and have that somewhere else, not acting as you. Then things like, hey, don't use dangerous mode
in Cloud Code, yeah.
In Cloud Code, and you have like there's something else. Is it YOLO mode or something in Codex? It's those are things that we say. Okay, we will verify those. Like the people don't have those settings on every time they log in. To say like, hey, and then bring that awareness. Like, look, this is just a bridge too far. Like this will act as you. There's no control. It can really escalate. There can be prompt injection. But really, what we really try to do is like really balance on our productivity. We see that AI is bringing a lot of positive things. And how we often quantify it is just, instead of working with, if you have our company of 500 people, you just now have 3,000 people. Yeah, everybody controls 4 or 5 agents. So it's the same problem that you just need to solve in a different way. And because XFA is already part of that authentication, so you authenticate in your Gmail, whatever, we can check that your device is safe. That unique position allows us to do much more. So we really take over that full MFA, that full XFA verification. And what we're working on now is, instead of this traditional model where we give everybody a base set of permissions, and then for elevated access, so for something risky, they have to contact an IT person, and the IT person is a whole day then clicking accept, which without the right context, with the right things. We really see a potential for a much more fluid permission system where it will be really easy to do your normal work, but then when you do something more risky or bigger action, you would need an extra confirmation from a colleague. And
right.
We're now talking about 2 humans, but we don't have to.
For iSecurity.
So hey, yeah, exactly. So an agent would do an action, and then it needs to, as it does now, it would ask you permission. We can really make this a possibility for every authentication. To say, hey, we make that nice cryptographically secure, that like the moment that you go to log in somewhere, that you have to have from one colleague or from 2 colleagues or from one manager and one colleague, like an extra confirmation. And that's where I think we can really make access management, permission management, really scalable. And yeah, that's future we see for XFA in this agentic AI future.
Brilliant. Good approach. I like it. It resonates a lot with your general non-invasive, privacy-respecting general approach to whatever you do in the team. I have one more question, and I think
we almost
this is my final for you, Lars. Despite I want to keep speaking because it's very interesting, and you're a great guest. Thank you for being with us. What's the most dangerous assumption companies are making about their device security right now? And if you could force a CISO to do one thing today, all CISOs in the world, what it would be? So I said one question and asked 2.
Yeah, difficult.
Usual style.
As always.
It's not just 5 or 10% of devices that you don't know. It's 40 to 60%. Yeah, it's like that's what we see, and it's not people are 30 or 40 days out of date. They're a full year out of date, on average. And I think that just, if I say like one thing that CISOs should do, I think it's a bit cheap, but like, please do a scan with XFA. It's free. It takes 4 clicks.
Whoa, it's free.
But
guys, listen, it's free.
You get these. Yeah, it's free. So I mean, like, it just you make an account and you do the scan. It takes 4 clicks, and you can get these numbers. And if you have 100% coverage, and there's nobody's on average you're 0 days out of date, I will personally congratulate you. I've seen it once. I haven't seen it much more. We've done this countless times.
How many employees there was in a single case?
It's a very good question. I'll be careful with saying somewhere between 50 to 100. So still a quite
great achievement.
Scalable.
Great achievement.
Like, that's
very rare.
But it was like crazy budget. Very risk-averse company, and but every other company that we've seen that's even slightly a bit flexible, that have great issues and doesn't know their risk. So That's what I would recommend. But hey, maybe a bit, making advertisement for our own product, of course, but I mean, it's free.
So stop installing MDM agents, because anyway, you would miss 60%. Start discovering your devices and what people actually use and make an awareness. I would
Absolutely
conclude it in this way. Lars, thank you a lot. It was a great talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I hope you would have some time a little bit more today to enjoy your sunset, which you have beautiful in your background. Have a great day.
You too as well. Cheers.
It was amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
High fives, guys.
High fives.
High fives. Let's go.
Zero Trust Podcast is a show at the intersection of cybersecurity, business, and AI. Hosted by experts in the field, Art and Oli, the podcast unpacks the latest threats, trends, and innovations shaping the digital security. Zero Trust Podcast brings raw insights, expert interviews, and thought-provoking discussions to help businesses and individuals navigate an increasingly hostile cyber world. Whether you're a security professional, tech, or business leader, this is your go-to source for unfiltered cybersecurity intelligence. And remember, never trust, always verify.